Welcome everyone to the latest North America and Europe weather discussion, and today we're going to be talking about the latest information regarding a significant weather pattern change coming to Europe, as well as a couple of impactful winter storms for the continental United States. But before we get into all that information, I wanted to start this off with an overview of what's going on between North America and Europe. First off, over the southwestern United States, we have the first significant storm system slowly sliding east, and this system is going to be the one to watch for some wintry impacts to portions of the mid-Atlantic and northeast in a couple of days. We also have a weaker system exiting the country right now, and you can see it located off the U.S. East Coast. Then over the Atlantic, we have a large and strong low-pressure system, and I expect this to head northward over the next few days, bringing heavy rain and strong winds to the Azores Islands by tomorrow. And lastly, we have a small low-pressure system moving into the UK and France, bringing some additional heavy rainfall and strong wind. Now to begin today's European weather discussion, we're going to take a wide view to see what's going on as of Thursday afternoon. Multiple low pressures and associated rain and wind continues to stream off the Atlantic into Western Europe, with wintry weather in central and eastern areas. On Friday, conditions should slowly improve the further east you go, but we're still going to have the pests from the west holding on for one more day across Ireland, the UK, France, and the Iberian Peninsula. By Saturday, noticeable improvements are occurring, especially in the north, so we're going to focus in on the northwest of Europe to see what happens next. Going into Sunday, colder air is going to fill in as high pressure takes its chance to replace all the low pressure, and then after that point, we're going to see a much drier, although colder pattern remain established for several days. If you are hoping for a break from the rain, the upcoming week is going to be just what you're looking for. Now looking towards northeastern Europe, we already have a high pressure zone taking up much of the Nordic countries, and this is the main reason for the extreme cold snap we've had there recently. Some lighter snow is going to be possible going forward for southern Sweden into the Baltic countries, but once that big pattern change really takes hold after January 6th, very little to no precipitation is expected. Things are a bit different regarding precipitation across southwestern Europe, with another wave likely moving across the region today into tomorrow. Then by the weekend, a brief break in the precipitation is expected, but it looks like the next chance of rain arrives by early next week. Some colder air is expected to fill into Spain just before that next wave of rain arrives, so I'm even watching the chance of snowfall for parts of northern and central Spain as we go into next week as well. Lastly, across the Mediterranean and southeastern Europe, I'm expecting very active weather over the next several days. A cold front will cross the Iberian Peninsula by January 5th, so when that energy gets over the warm Mediterranean waters, a new low pressure area will develop, creating a cutoff low. The term cutoff low is pretty self-explanatory since it's literally going to be cut off from the main jet stream, and you'll notice some rain spreading into Central and Eastern Europe by the 6th from this cutoff low. And with colder air coming in from the north, we're expecting to see a switch over to snowfall for some of these areas. Then, as that high pressure continues building to the north, we expect this system to get suppressed southward even more. So then all that snowfall is going to spread down into the Balkan countries with rainfall elsewhere. We're going to come back to the possible rain and snow totals across Europe in just a moment, but for now let's take a look at what's going on in North America. Much of Canada is quite dry except for parts of British Columbia, and then over the United States, widespread mountain snowfall is ongoing, especially around the Four Corners where the winter storm is located. Snowfall spreads into Kansas, Oklahoma, and the Ozarks by Friday, and by the weekend we see freezing rain, sleet, and snow breaking out across parts of North Carolina into the mid-Atlantic. This storm will be a pretty fast mover, so we're going to see snowfall reach the northeast by later that day. Places like Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York City all look to be very close to that rain-snow line, so it's going to be a pretty tricky forecast. On Sunday, the swath of snow will continue moving across southern New England, so we're going to have places like Providence, Rhode Island, and Boston, Massachusetts getting into the snowfall, and then the system should slide off the coast by later that day into the nighttime. Our attention will shift westward by the start of the work week as a much larger system is on the horizon, and you're going to see that system become more apparent on Monday and Tuesday as it explosively intensifies, spreading widespread precipitation as it moves eastward through Wednesday. I'll have additional details about these two storms coming up in Chapter 2 of this video, but for now let's get back to the European weather update. The biggest story coming with this pattern change is going to be the drop in temperatures, which I did mention earlier in the video, but I wanted to show you this temperature map so you can see how these temperatures will be coming in. For today, we can see that it's still relatively warm for western and southern areas, but even as early as tomorrow, we're going to start seeing those colder temperatures creeping in from the north and east. Frigid air will really start coming in a lot quicker, especially when that large high pressure area develops on January 6th and the 7th. And then by the 9th, we're going to have some very cold air really getting into parts of Eastern and Central Europe. Strangely enough, temperatures will actually start to rise over Sweden and Finland, even rising above the freezing mark, while other parts of Europe are 10 to 15 degrees below zero. Now with that in mind, let's move on to the expected precipitation forecast for the next 5 days. We can easily see the difference in precipitation totals the further north you go. Southern areas of Europe will be the hot spot for precipitation as this pattern change takes over, and we see that especially around Italy and coastal areas of Greece, Turkey, Russia, Georgia, and North Africa. And as far as snowfall totals go for the same time frame, unfortunately it looks like the chances are slim for Ireland and the UK. The main reason for that is going to be the lack of moisture in place. Parts of Iberia may see some snowfall primarily in higher elevations in this time frame, but like I mentioned earlier, I would be watching for the possibility of a snowstorm in parts of Spain around January 10th. Then the Alps and the Pyrenees look to get a good helping of snowfall once again, and it's going to be attributed to that storm lingering in the Mediterranean. Parts of Moldova, Ukraine, and northern Romania can expect a swath of snowfall between January 7th and the 9th, and that's also going to be coming from a surge of precipitation from that Mediterranean storm. And then lastly, parts of Germany and Poland into the Baltic countries are still expecting a few more centimeters of snowfall over the next day or so from the current weather pattern. So that's what we're going to be dealing with here in Europe heading into next week. We have more interesting weather events looming after January 10th, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more updates on that. We have a few more things to discuss in North America, so let's begin Chapter 2. First off, this is the key messages for the East Coast winter storm. An area of low pressure is forecast to develop near the Gulf Coast late Friday and then track northeast of the Delmarva coast on Saturday. The low will deepen south of New England before ejecting eastward into the Atlantic by Monday. Significant icing is possible, especially for portions of the southern and central Appalachians. Ice accumulations exceeding 1/10 of an inch could produce hazardous travel due to slippery roads between Friday night into Saturday. Heavy snowfall amounts are becoming likely for the interior mid-Atlantic and New England, and although details are still uncertain, significant accumulations of heavy and wet snow may cause considerable travel impacts as well as possible impacts to infrastructure. Lastly, coastal flooding is a concern as the low intensifies on Sunday. This is the Weather Prediction Center's hazards outlook for January 6th through the 10th, and as you can probably tell, it's going to be pretty chaotic. Particularly heavy snowfall is expected across the western United States and those blue areas. High winds are going to be possible in the areas in tan, with a severe weather threat outlined in the yellow, and that's going to be for January 8th. Freezing rainfall may pose a significant risk in that pink area over parts of North Carolina into Virginia. So with all that said, that's going to conclude today's forecast. So if you enjoyed, I definitely recommend subscribing for further updates. And with that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.